one of the moments in the speech that really struck me was the one where he said, and I'm not going to get the words exactly right, but the gist of it was, or the rhyme that he offered, and like I said, there was a couple more beats, I think, to both ends of the rhyme, but it was essentially, you can't have peace and legislate if you have war and investigate. Now, maybe I may be mixing up the order in which it's going around, but aside from the fact that it was eerily reminiscent of if the glove doesn't fit, you must acquit. It's also a vague threat. Like, I don't know what that means. Peace. What do you mean by peace? Do you know what I mean? Like, it did seem like he was saying, like, look, if you continue to investigate me, things can get pretty chaotic. And wouldn't that be a shame? Like, nice country you have here, nice stability. Be a real shame to lose it. I mean, it did have a feel to that, didn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I don't think there's any doubt. I mean, it was actually one of the more clever lines in the speech, simply because they did have some plausible deniability, which they can say, oh, no, that wasn't a threat. We were talking about war and peace, that we've got to deal with those things. And if we do all this other stuff, then we can't, we won't be able to do the important things that we need to deal with. But of course, it's a double entendre, and we know exactly what he was really saying. You want to go to war? You want peace. You want to have a nice little government you have here. You'd be a shame if anything happened to it. Of course, that's what he was saying. And in fact, there's some reporting that said that before the State of the Union, when they were writing it, that he was sending it back because he thought it was way too soft. And I just have a feeling, he really wanted to talk about the investigations, but they told him, I'm sure, that it was a mistake because, Richard Nixon had done that. And he said, 1 year of Watergate is enough, and the comparisons were too much. So they kind of had to try to find a way to do it to please him.
Right.
So that he could do it with that, and they could have some kind of plausible deniability. But of course it was a threat, and it was taken as a threat by the Democrats. Nancy Pelosi said so. She heard it that way. And absolutely, he talked about partisan investigations at one point, too. And she rolled her eyes at that, actually, sitting behind him. And she said, after the State of the Union, she said, this is not going to deter us. We're going to do our jobs of oversight and whatever. But it was definitely, he was throwing down the gauntlet and saying, look, if you want to get anything done for the American people, or, if you don't want to have an all-out war, you got to end all these investigations. I mean, it's obvious that he's freaked out by it, and well, he should be. I mean, he is. The walls are closing in on him from all directions on that stuff. But the Democrats weren't having any of it, and I don't think they're going to. They have no reason to, because there is zero reason to believe that he is willing to negotiate in good faith on anything. So the next 2 years, they have no choice. They can try. They'll pass. I'm sure the Democrats will pass some positive legislation. They're going into a big election. They want some things to run on that they can say this is what we stand for. But the idea that any of it's going to pass, I don't think they're deluding themselves. I mean, he is, even at the moment, refusing to, even entertain the idea that the appropriations people working on this on the budget, that they're going to come up with anything on his wall. I mean, he's basically just saying, it's not going to work. There's no way. So, I mean, this is not what a good faith negotiator does. So, I think they understand that about him. And,
we just have about a minute and a half left here. And I know you'll be joining me in the next hour, but, what about that? Like, it doesn't, have you seen a way out of this, and, we can talk more about this, after in the next hour. But, the big question I have right now is, now that Mitch McConnell has basically told the president, like, you can't declare a state of emergency, and they have reasons to be very fearful about setting that precedent, ones which, I have to say, I think are justified, and frankly, I find quite enticing. And we can talk about that when we return as well. But the real question that we're faced with now is, how does Donald Trump end this? I guess this question as to whether the government will shut down again. I have yet to really get a clear sense of how this is going to be averted. But yet it's almost impossible to imagine that they would shut the government down again. I think what we would see is almost an immediate reaction by labor that in many respects resolved the first government shutdown. But let's talk about that in the next hour. Heather, if you'll join me. I'm Sam Seder. This is Ring of Fire Radio. We'll be back in a moment, and then Heather will be back in the next hour.